taking notes from nobody.
Jaylen Brown.
Your superstars have off games.
Follow us on social media at Celtics Talk Weekly.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into Celtics Postgame Live. I am your host, Rob Tam. I am with my co-host, Seamus Zarlingo, aka Celtics Every Day. The Boston Celtics drop a close one at home, 106-98 to the Miami Heat. The one-seeded Miami Heat, as you can see, Jaylen Brown led the way for the Celtics with 28 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. However, in that fourth quarter, he did struggle to buy a basket, and his field goal percentage dropped drastically to 9-22. Tatum was close behind him with 23 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists on a 9-17 shooting. And for the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler led the way with 24, and Kyle Lowry right behind him with a solid 23 points from Lowry. Seamus, the Celtics fall right around, I believe, 2 games now out of that first spot. They sit at the 4th spot, tied for it with Philly. Boston, as you know, you only got 5 games left in the playoffs. At this point, seeding plays a factor because the Robert Williams news dropped. Where do you want the Celtics to fall, and does this game really affect the Celtics standings, or would they prefer to fall 3 or 4?
Well, it depends what camp you're in at the end of the day. If you think that you get the 1 seed or the 2 seed and you're afraid of Brooklyn, then yeah, go ahead and fall down to 3 and go about the playoffs in that way, where you play either Cleveland or potentially Toronto in the first round, whereas that matchup is not going to be as tough as a potential Brooklyn matchup. But there's another argument where if the Celtics do maintain the number 1 seed, they have home court throughout. And there's an argument that now with Robert Williams out of the lineup, other guys are going to have to step up and play more often. And in that setting, you probably want to be on your home floor more often than not. So in that case, you go ahead and say, yes, we want to go out and get the number 1 seed. But it really just depends on what camp you're in and what your thought process is. I would say from the team perspective, they're just going to try to win as many games as possible. That's very evident right now as they just suffered a 3-point loss in Toronto on Monday, and then tonight another close loss to the Miami Heat, both of which were without key players in the lineup. But moving forward, the Celtics, there's really no, negative outcome here unless the Celtics just completely fall apart and fall below the 4 seed. I would say in the overall discussion, the narrative should be the Celtics should try to be above the 4 line, 1 through 4, one of those 4 seeds at the end of the day. You want home court advantage in that first round for when they don't have Robert Williams. So right now, I wouldn't put a tremendous amount of stock in this game. We can talk about this individual game more, but I'm sure for some people the sky is falling to some extent now, seeing us. We're now 2 games out of first, and we just lost to the Miami Heat at home. But truly moving forward, we have 6 games left. We're in a really good position still. We've played 2 competitive games now without Robert Williams and, of course, that other one without other players such as Brown, Tatum, and Horford. So right now the Celtics, they're still in a good spot, and they're now in a place where they have to face adversity moving forward. And we've talked about this all year long. Good teams, they have to overcome adversity to go out and win ball games, and that's exactly what the Celtics are going to have to do now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was a rough game offensively in that fourth quarter. Kind of felt like we were back in January. Couldn't really get that lid off the basket, down the stretch. I think Tatum went scoreless in the fourth quarter. Refs kind of played a factor into that, kind of got into his head, wasn't getting the foul calls. Miami did play some suffocating defense on, respect where respect is due. In terms of how much stock I'm going to put into this game, Seamus, I'm going to put a little bit into it for sure. It's a game at home against the Miami Heat team that you've kind of handled very well all throughout this year. But if you remember previously on last post-game show, or 2 post-game shows ago, I believe, I said that, it might be a bumpy stretch here for the Celtics. They've played really good basketball for the past 40 games. And if you remember correctly, in the 2017-18 year when Kyrie went down, Celtics played a good stretch for right around 40 games. And those last 13 games, they kind of really struggled. Kyrie was out of the lineup. They had some key guys out. They were resting players for the playoffs, and they kind of finished on a slow, bumpy start to the playoffs. Don't be surprised if that happens here. I don't think I'd push the panic button just yet. However, the Celtics have done a really good job at putting themselves in a position where these last 5 games have, home court implications, right? I'd like to personally win 3 out of these last 5. I think that's ideal. If you hit that 50 window, you're locked into that 4-3 seed. I don't believe Chicago will hit that 50 win mark. They got some tough 5 games, and same with Philly. We're still sitting tied with Philly for that 4. So I definitely I think it sucks because it kind of closes and shuts the door on an opportunity for that 1 seed, which confidence wise is something you'd really like to see the Celtics is grab. But I think that where Celtics are still looking pretty solid here, despite what people might freak out and feel as if it's the sky is falling, no Robert Williams, and I don't think tonight's game was a a Robert Williams effect. Do you? I don't think. I think we felt kind of the absence of Robert Williams as Ian joins us, but I don't think tonight's loss was a direct implication of we lost because of no Robert Williams.
I think there was a little bit of that throughout the game just because of Miami and their length out there, specifically with Bam Adebayo, and of course they have Dwayne Dedmon out there as well. I thought there was a little bit of an effect, especially in the first half, where there were a couple of opportunities that the Miami Heat created that you just look at and go, would they have been able to, throw up that same shot if Robert Williams was down there? But overall, I would tend to agree with you that I wouldn't say this game was entirely affected by the absence of Robert Williams, but you did see shades of his absence throughout the game for sure.
Yeah. Now, Ian, I asked Seamus this as Seamus joined the show. I said, as the playoffs are coming up, it's such a close race. It's really the closest race we've seen in years in the NBA. Through that 1-4 seed between the Celtics, the Heat, the Bucks, and the Sixers. Where do you want to see Boston fall here? Because now that first round matchup could be a little bit more important now that we're without Rob for that first matchup here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who the Celtics match up with. You really can't make a prediction who the Celtics are going to face right now because depending on what happens during the rest of the season, the Celtics could be the 1 seed or they could be the 5th seed. Who knows? But
yeah,
honestly, it's going to be rough because it's kind of funny that the day the Celtics got the 1st seed, we were talking about how there was nobody that could beat the Celtics, and the Celtics looked unstoppable. But yeah, without Robert Williams, it's a little rough. I don't think Robert Williams not being there was a direct correlation to us losing that game. The Celtics kind of fell apart in the 4th quarter tonight. It was kind of an annoying game overall to watch. I'm not going to lie. I was just kind of annoyed the entire time. Foul calls that were and weren't happening, but you can't really blame the refs for only scoring 15 points in the 4th quarter. But it's going to be kind of important because the Celtics need to face a team that doesn't have such a dominant big. If the Celtics get the 2 seed or the 3 seed, let's just say, or two of the 1st seed, let's just play. Say we get the 1st seed. Let's see if we play Charlotte. That would be ideal because Charlotte really doesn't have much of a center, and they don't have many bigs that can really hurt us.
No, man. I'm gonna tell you this right now. The IT curse is real.
Yeah.
If we face Charlotte in the 1st round, what if we get knocked out by IT? Would that convince everybody of the IT curse?
I don't know.
I just want to.
I'm afraid of Charlotte just because of IT.
So I'm looking at this game and I'm actually saying the Celtics kind of they made up for the lack of Robert Williams kind of almost to the max. Daniel Tice had 15 points. Al Horford 15 rebounds, 6 points. Horford had a block. Obviously it's the paint presence of Al Horford. But I think the matter of the fact is that if you look at Miami, or the Celtics rather, entering after the 1st quarter, the Celtics were 6 of 12 from 3. And for the remainder of the game, they shot 5 of 25 from beyond the arc. They finished 30% from 3. Tatum 0 for 5, Grant 0 for 3, Pritchard a 1 for 3, White 1 of 4. I don't think this was, Robert Williams isn't on the court. The Celtics are missing his impact defensively. The Heat only scored 106 points. The Celtics still did their thing on defense. No question. They struggled a little bit in the pick and roll game, guarding that Lowry and Bam kind of little combo. But I just think Jason Tatum kind of was lackadaisical offensively. I think he got a couple bad fouls. His threes weren't dropping, which they have been. He's shooting right around a 40% clip this month. This was kind of the only the past 15, 20 games that he shot poorly from beyond the arc. So I think that I don't look at this game and I don't think to myself, oh God, the Celtics have Robert Williams blues. Sure, there were some times you don't got his shot blocking at the rim in a game against Bam. But I'm looking at my first round matchups here. I'm looking at the potential ones, right? Chicago. If you pull up the Eastern Conference standings, right, this is what we're working with, right? So obviously Boston is 47-30 now, tied with Philly for that 4 spot. But if you look at their matchups, right, we're looking at either 4-5 matchup most likely with Chicago. I think Horford can do his thing on Vucevic, and defensively the Celtics are still stand tall. They're still an 8-man defensive team, depth wise. Or you could see a 3-6 matchup against either the Cavs or the Raptors. I don't believe Brooklyn will sneak into that 6. They're sitting 4 games back right now. It should probably either be Toronto or Chicago who we're going to see in that 6 seed. So I'm looking at Chicago, and I think if Chicago can find a way to get fully healthy, which I don't think they will, and even if they do, I don't think they have enough time to let it all mesh together in time for the playoffs. I like our odds against both of those teams. I think even without Robert Williams, we can make that a 5-game series, a 6-game series. I just think that, you look at a night, and it wasn't, oh gosh, right? Celtics, no Robert Williams, this is ugly. I'm thinking, oh gosh, the Celtics started off hot from beyond the arc, played some solid defense, and then they just couldn't buy a bucket. And offensively, Tatum kind of pulled himself out of the game because the refs got into his head.
Yeah, and this game too is all about, well, now for the Celtics at least, moving forward, these past 2 games, and this game specifically tonight against the Miami Heat, this is going to be an adjustment period without Robert Williams. Yeah. Because if you look at the lineups the Celtics have used this year, the Celtics have used the 5-man combo of Robert Williams, Al Horford, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum for 443 minutes this season. And they're by far one of the best lineups in the NBA. And so now the Celtics have to go to lineups that they haven't used as often, inserting Grant Williams into there, mix and matching with Derek White in some situations, going a little bit smaller on some occasions. And now moving forward, the Celtics, they're almost starting from this period of, they're not starting over necessarily, but Ime, he's going to have to find some things out about this team moving forward coming into the playoffs, because, the playoffs, that's when a lot of scheming happens between 2 teams, and that's when a team can figure out another team over a 7-game series. And right now, the Celtics, they want to be a little bit more certain with their lineups going into the playoffs. And right now, this was just the first game of the next, 5-6 games, where it's going to be an adjustment period to see who's going to play and who's not going to play in some of these rotations come playoff time. And next thing you know, we're going to be in the midst of a series, and these questions are going to loom even larger.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of rough. The Celtics played good on defense. I feel like there were a couple times where it felt like, Robert Williams was missed. But I'm a little concerned with how their offense is going to go now because, granted, the Miami Heat are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. And they always seem to sometimes have the Celtics number when it comes to playing at home around the end of the season. I don't get it. Like even last year, remember last year when we lost at the end of the year against Miami?
2 times.
And a couple of years ago too. I don't know what it is about Miami against us in the end of the season, but anyway, yeah, so I'm a little concerned about the Celtics offense moving forward. I'm not going to lie, because like you said, Seamus, there's a lot of guys that haven't played together that are going to have to start playing together. And I don't know. I don't really know what the Celtics do with their offense, really. I didn't really like the way they were, kind of settling for shooting a lot because, like you said, they played well in the first half when it came to shooting, but that's not always sustainable to win the game. So I don't know. I really don't know what to think after this loss, to be honest.
I can point a finger at a certain someone this game that had a very uncharacteristic. Over the past 40 games, there's been a certain player on the Celtics team that has had very great stretch, right? Greatest stretch of his career, basketball-wise, and that is Marcus Smart. Smart has kind of stopped with shooting the basketball on these isolation hero-type shots, right? He's kind of cut that out of his arsenal. Tonight, he was 3 of 50. He took 15. He took 2 less shots than Jason Tatum tonight, folks. 2. He took double the amount of threes as Tatum, shot 3 of 10 from beyond the arc, 3 of 15 from the floor. It's 20%. Barely cracked double digits, had 10 points, 8 assists, 3 steals. If Marcus Smart, if you give 10 of those shots up, Smart, or we'll say 8 of those shots to someone else, I think the Celtics win this basketball game. I do think Marcus Smart he had 6 turnovers. I just think Smart had a very sloppy game, and you haven't seen that from him in a long time. However, that does bring us to our player spotlight. Jaylen Brown, as you take a look at the leaderboards here, Jason Tatum still leads the way with that 18. Jaylen Brown's trying to catch up to him. Brown, with this one, hits the 13th. Smart, who we was just talking about, has 9, and good old Robert Williams will stand still at end the season at 5 player spotlights. With just 5 games left, we're going to have to see Jaylen Brown kind of turn it up to see if he can tie his good friend Jason Tatum. But Seamus, Ian, I got to ask you guys, right? How was Marcus Smart's offensive impact? How did it hurt the Celtics tonight?
Now, when it comes to Marcus Smart tonight, as much as I want to be a little angry about the fact that he took 15 shots, which was kind of annoying, but there was some situations where he was kind of forced to take some shots because it was the end of the shot clock and he just had to throw up a prayer to see if it'll go in. That happened a few times in this game. I noticed he had some nice passes. I think he ended with 8 assists. He was okay on that front, but when it came to shooting tonight, I don't know, maybe he was thinking since Robert Williams is gone, he needs to make up the difference. But I don't know, man. If Marcus, because we talk about this with Marcus sometimes where we know that there's times where he's just going to shoot a bunch of times, and there's times where he's going to hit it, and there's times where he's going to miss it. But at this point, at least right now, I don't think it's smart of him to take all these shots right now. I feel like, the way he's been playing before tonight, and even before Toronto, he was passing the ball. He was engaged. It looked like the Heat kind of got the best of him tonight. He looked like he was trying to make up the difference for, I don't know, maybe he was just frustrated the whole night and he just tried to shoot his way out of, the slump he had. But, we'll have to see what happens moving forward. I don't suggest that he take 15 shots in every night unless he's hitting them, but that's just me.
Yeah, and it's Marcus Smart giveth and Marcus Smart taketh away on the offensive end of the floor, because tonight Marcus Smart was a tremendous playmaker. He had a couple of plays that it just knocked your. It was one of those just electrifying, everyone in the garden gets up type of plays, and yet there are still all those other type of plays where he's just shooting the ball ill-advised on a possession early in the shot clock or late in the game where there could have been another pass there, or you'd rather someone else take that shot. And it just goes along with the argument of Marcus Smart. As he takes more shots, he's not as efficient of a player as some of these other scorers out there, and that's the problem with him on the offensive end of the floor. And tonight's game really highlighted his, just highly inefficient side of his game on the offensive end of the floor in regards to his shooting. But hopefully moving forward, we won't see much more of this Marcus Smart we have over the past couple of games for some reason. In the last game, there was a clear and obvious reason for the Brown, no Tatum, no Horford, no Williams. But tonight, with Tatum, Brown, and Horford back into the lineup, you'd expect Marcus Smart to slot back into his typical role of just being a facilitator. Yeah. Yet we saw 15 shots from him tonight. 10 of those were three-pointers. And he only made 3 shots total. That's not going to work moving forward. But I wouldn't worry too much about Marcus Smart because, like you both mentioned, we've seen Marcus Smart turn his game around and play a different style these past couple of months. And there's no reason why we shouldn't think that he can go back to that style of play come playoff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Pritchard only took 3 shots. I would like to see Pritchard hit that 6 or 7 mark. I think that if he can get 7 shots up, he'll be knocking down at least right around 3 or 4 from beyond the arc. That's usually the clip he shoots at.
Now that you say that, maybe that's the reason why he took all those shots, because Peyton Pritchard, he's been great the last few games, but tonight he just couldn't get open. Anytime he was open, there was someone right there in his face. And
well, when you look at Miami's bench, they got a lot of length. Duncan Robinson's a pretty tall guard. Same with Gabe Vincent and Tyler Hero. Not Hero, all of them not the best defenders. However, when you got a guy like Pritchard who you're going up against, they're long, right? They're long and they're tough to get shots over. So that is a good point, Ian. I do think that could have been a reason. However, no way, no how should Marcus Smart be taking 15 shots in a game where Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are both playing. You got to get those shots to guys like Derek White, Peyton Pritchard. I would have liked to see Aaron Nesmith in this game, especially how he played against the Raptors. I think Nesmith could have made some good contributions, especially on the offensive side of things. I think there were some hustle plays that he could have gotten in there and done his thing. However, the Boston Celtics do drop a rough one at home to the Miami Heat. Let's take a look at our final box score once again. Like I said before, the Boston Celtics dropped to 47-30. The Miami Heat advanced for that one game away from that 50-win season mark that every basketball team tries to hit, 49-28. Jaylen Brown led all Celtic scorers with 28. Tatum was not too far behind with 23. And Daniel Tice, am I seeing that right, Ian? That's your boy right there. 15 points, 6 of 6 from the floor, playing that Robert Williams role tonight pretty well. And over on the Miami Heat side of things, Jimmy Butler, 24, Kyle Lowry, 23, and the rest tacked along anywhere from 17 to 12. Guys, before we close out this show, what are your final thoughts and opinions on the Celtics loss tonight at home against the Miami Heat?
Well, one thing I want to say about Daniel Tice. Tice was great offensively tonight. Defensively, on the other hand, needs a little more work. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, tonight granted it's Bam Adebayo, and there's not a lot of centers in the league that can stop Bam Adebayo, but I don't know, man. He was getting beat a lot on defense tonight, and, that's no disrespect to Daniel Tice. He played great offensively, and he had some plays that were really good. It's just like, I don't know, sometimes on defense it feels like he just can't keep up with some players. And I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just because this is a time where he's getting an expanding role for the first time in a while. So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm hoping Daniel Tice can turn it around a little bit defensively to where, he can be a little better on that end of the court, but offensively he was really good tonight. I hope Rob Williams is okay. I really do. I can't wait to see him back on the court because the Celtics are a different team with him there, versus when he's not. And I want to see what they can do moving forward, without him. The starters kind of need to figure out what they're going to do without him.
Yeah, 2 things. Number one, the positives from this game are certainly there in terms of Daniel Tice playing the role he did, especially Ian, hit on it on the offensive end of the floor. Of course, I didn't really expect too much out of Daniel Tice tonight against Bam Adebayo. We already know that story from the 2020 Eastern Conference Finals, so to see him get a little shredded in that regard was not exactly the most surprising thing, but he did play a solid game on the offensive end of the floor, and he was, I don't want to say this is the most aggressive I've ever seen Daniel Tice play because he's been here a while now all of a sudden, but he was really, really aggressive at some points during this game tonight, and he was aggressive as well on Monday in Toronto, and that's exactly what I want to see out of him moving forward with Robert Williams out of the lineup and his role now expanding with the team. But the other thing with this that I want to talk about is I worry just a little bit about their offense right now just because the pick and roll aspect of their offense, where is it coming from now that Robert Williams is not in the lineup? They're running a lot. They're running a lot with Daniel Tice, and you can run some with Horford, but he's really not that player anymore. He's not a guy who can just go up and get lobs on other guys anymore. He's 35 years old. You don't want to put that much wear and tear on him. So I do wonder, without that aspect of your lineup, the Celtics, they're going to struggle to create offense at tonight down the stretch. They only get 8 points in this game, and maybe with Robert Williams, there's a couple more points throughout the fourth. Maybe you pull out this game, and even throughout the game, the Celtics, there were opportunities that they just missed at the rim. Maybe it turns out differently, but I do worry a little bit about the offense and them losing that huge aspect of their offense because, we talk about for all these teams, what's one of the most efficient plays in the NBA? It's the pick and roll. You can create so much action off the pick and roll, and we had one of the best pick and roll centers in the league in our lineup, and now with that being taken away, I certainly have some questions on where the extra points are going to come from now, and we'll just have to see moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the Celtics have their work cut out for them. They have 2 more games at home, 2 games that they could potentially kind of just get their feet, settled before the playoffs, before that stretch of basketball, try to figure some things out with Robert Williams out of lineup. Our next game is against the Indiana Pacers at home Friday, the 1st of April. That game starts at 7:30. We'll have you covered right back here at BSML live after the final buzzer. Guys, Celtics, like I said, drop a tough one at home, but they look to bounce back. I'm Rob. Next to me is Seamus, and below me is my boy Ian. Celtics, hopefully they recover